Hello, Jamie. We're really looking forward to having you, the Gryphon Trio, here at the Meek Arts Center. That's going to be the second performance of our Resonate 25-26 Resonate series, Sunday, November 16th at 3 p.m. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Melissa. Great to be here.
I'm going to just timestamp this recording. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, Vancouver time, and you are in?
I'm in Eastern Time,
Yeah.
Toronto Blue Jays town.
And we're both wearing Blue Jays colors.
Yeah,
So.
big game 7 to game 6 tonight. Yeah.
Game six. Hopefully, there's no game seven, right? Because
Yeah,
our hearts can't take it.
yeah.
So, what I thought was interesting, we were just chatting about 92, 93 when we both lived in Toronto,
Yeah.
but that is the year also the Gryphon Trio got together,
Oh, that's
93,
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. It is over like 30 something years ago. Yeah.
That's
And it's the
interesting.
same three of us and still running around the world playing concerts, having fun and sharing good vibrations. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that is one of my questions. So, your colleagues Annalie Patapethanakun, if I've pronounced that correctly, and Roman Boris, so violin and cello. And that's pretty special, right? To be together that long.
It is.
Play every
I mean, when you look at really most personal and professional relationships don't make it past, that kind of, with an ensemble, one of the keys is a decade. If you can get past a decade, by then you've probably worked out, certain interpersonal things. Maybe people have settled into relationships, settled into some kind of, job where there's a certain sense of security. So if you can make it past that, then a lot of it is just building on what you've created and continuing to nurture it. I always joke, though, when we had our 20th anniversary, Eric Friesen had us go do a radio interview in Winnipeg. And so the guy was asking us, so what does it take to last 20 years together as an ensemble? What do you need? And I said, you need two patient people and one cellist. So, and quite frankly, I stand by that. Because they're always sort of all over the place, and it takes you've got to be able to have complementary personalities, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm surprised it's the cellist.
I mean, sometimes the pianist,
Yeah,
I don't
okay. Not in this case. No, that's great. Um, right. So, anyways, long time, and you've also had relationships with the works that you're playing so the Dvorak Dumke and the Beethoven Opus 1 number 3. You've recorded both those works, and I should
yeah,
just say you three have won, I believe it's three Junos,
that's right.
and done many, many recordings. But maybe just talk to us a little bit about the Beethoven and the Dvorak in turn, and what your
Sure.
relationship is with them and how that's developed.
So Beethoven, I mean, Beethoven for me, he's always been my first and greatest hero in music. I've come to really love analysis, and you can't have a better source and subject material than any Beethoven piece. You just see where, and it's something I work with students at University of Toronto with, is the idea of how you analyze your sonatas, your chamber works, and so forth. It's just a really important thing. You get to sort of peek inside, someone's mind when you're analyzing pieces. And when you have a main theme, you don't have to analyze every note of that main theme, but you do have to, analyze depending on how they develop these themes. Sometimes it might be the first two notes, like literally, he takes two notes and creates like a half-hour symphony out of this. But sometimes something relatively inconsequential becomes a focal point for development later on in the piece. And so you just want to it's just a wonderful way to really get inside a piece. And then it helps with your understanding, and then it helps with your portrayal and communication of this to an audience. So with the Beethoven that we're going to be playing Opus 1 number 3. So of course we're kind of proud of the fact that the very first works he chose to publish as a professional is Opus 1, our piano trios. And the first, they're dedicated to Haydn, who he had studied with and who he admired. The first two of the Opus One are relatively lighter in character, in major keys, E flat major, G major. They're generally, good-natured, youthful Beethoven. With the Opus One number 3 that we're playing, this is his first foray into C minor, and so you just get a hint of all the darkness, of all the anger that will come later when he has the Fifth Symphony, some of the piano and other chamber works. That key becomes a real touchstone for him releasing, just the inner darkness that I think is a part of our humanity. And so there's some really just some shockingly dramatic things, especially for the context of the time in which it was written, where we're generally hearing lighthearted classical music, whether it's Mozart divertimento, Haydn symphonies, very 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 charming, elegant, beautifully crafted music. And then with this trio, we get a sense of not just anger but fury, moments of just fury, where he's just sort of shaking his fist at the universe. And it really must have been quite frightening. And in fact, I think Haydn, when he was looking through these works, he said, look, I think the first two are great, great, Ludwig. That third one, maybe hold back on publishing that one. So I mean, I think he even thought it was a little bit too much, because I think with Haydn you get momentary furiosa passages that get sort of startling and a little bit angry. But with Beethoven, he really releases fury, and so that happens in the first movement, and a very explosive ending to it. What's interesting then is that things sort of calm down in the slow movement and scherzo, and then the last movement, again, a furious opening to it. It's prestissimo. Beethoven hardly ever writes presto or prestissimo. So when he does, it's like, bat out of hell. That's what you want to do. That's what he's demanding of us. And so it really just takes off like a rocket. And then interestingly, at the very end, it sort of subsides, like the storm has passed, and we get these very quiet, delicate C major scales at the very end. And so it actually ends, it dissipates. And so we don't get the kind of the furious ending that we had at the end of the first movement. So it's a terrific piece, and just full of tension, and the kind of drama that we love in Beethoven.
And a taste of what's to come, right? Both in
Absolutely,
Beethoven's career,
absolutely,
but also of the
absolutely, absolutely foreshadowing
romanticism.
all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Fascinating. Great. Okay. And tell us about the Dumkey. The Dumkey's a pretty large scale, six
Yeah,
movements, lots
it's
going
it's
on.
it's a big six movement piece. Although, as I like to introduce it, and I may, on the Sunday when we get there, is that it's one of the best values in chamber music, because most chamber pieces are three or four movements, and with the Dvorak Dumki, you're getting six movements for the price of three. But they are a bit shorter, so it's still about a little bit over a half hour. And what he does with those, you should be able to sort of keep track structurally of what he's doing. He basically has sort of two ideas. So we would call it in binary form. And so we have an A section, which will be, like, say, the very first key will start off kind of yeah, so sorry, I got stuff on my keyboard here. But so we'll start off really quite dramatic, and then a really light and charming passage. And so, and then those same two things will come back. Those same two, the dramatic thing, we just sort of switch up who plays what when the music comes back, and then back to this dance-like thing. And so, really, a lot of them follow this pattern where he's just basically contrasting two very different moods, and then he repeats those two moods with just little differences in the orchestration of who plays what. And and that that really that's the main idea. A dumka singular comes from a Ukrainian idea, which was I think the literal translation of dumka is a thought or an idea, and that became a sort of a kind of a Ukrainian form of poetry, where you would have these tales of heroic triumphs and tragic defeats and so forth. And so I mean, really quite apropos of what's going on over there right now. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Fascinating.
but really, really, also a piece that is really full of lots of sort of the kinds of Slavic things, really over the top joy and tumultuous times, really, really sort of explained in musical terms.
Wonderful. And the third work on the program is Jeffrey Ryan's Chimera.
Mhm.
So it was, yeah, hybrid, a chimera is a hybrid of a lion, goat, and a serpent, as I
Yeah.
understand it. So there are three parts in the work,
Yeah, and so it
right?
was the idea of
Lion,
sort of the griffin and having,
right.
three people involved in something. I don't like to think of us as a mythologically three-headed monster, but but
Definitely
no,
not.
Jeff's an old friend, and so we're delighted to have this piece from him. And actually, the next time we get around to recording Canadian pieces, I mean, this will be one of the first on the list because it's been a while since we've done one of those. But yeah, so the idea of having, three entities within one body, so to speak. So it's basically a lion, and then somehow this kind of, mountain goat head as well, and then this the tail is sort of a serpentine kind of thing with a serpent head at the end. So really quite an unusual thing. In modern times, we get it when I think a more modern definition is if you have two DNA different DNA profiles within one living entity. So sometimes you'll get that with either blood transfusion or organ transplants, and so it's this idea of hybridity of having multifaceted things within one coherent whole.
Amazing. That sounds
Yeah.
great. And I did notice too that you've actually, so I should mention that Jeff Ryan is a Vancouver
Hmm.
composer, and we think he will be in the hall that the day, so that'll be really fun.
Yeah, I hope so.
But you also have recorded with the BSO and the late Bramwell Tovey a work by Jeff Ryan for piano trio and orchestra.
Yeah, and that was great, because we got to what was really nice was the cooperative spirit. So basically, it was a co-commission of the Vancouver Symphony and the Toronto Symphony. And so what's great about that is that, for everybody, I mean, so Jeff gets a couple performances out of it. Plus, we were able to, I think, record the dress rehearsal and the concert. So we were able to put together a recording from that. Um, it's sort of kind of half priced for the orchestras because they're neither of them are paying full freight, so to speak, for the piece. And it's good for programming for everybody. So it was and we got to play it in two cities, and for me my two home cities. So that was a terrific project, and of course working with Brown was very special, and um, just like to remember what a wonderful figure and musician he was for the Vancouver community.
Absolutely, for Vancouver. Yeah, I think I still think we
Of
miss
course,
him.
Winnipeg and
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Just maybe like you can talk us through a little bit. So you've been together for so long and you've done a lot of different things. So um it's a bit of jazz, some
no, I wouldn't
tango.
call it jazz. I mean, maybe some salsa and a little bit of tango
So
stuff.
okay, okay.
If we do
Um
anything with our jazzer friends, it's written out for us.
right, oh, yes, of course. Yes, understood. And also most recently Echo Memories of the World. So that was in
Mhm.
collaboration with a team of Indigenous and non-Indigenous artists, including Marion Newman.
Yeah.
So do you want to just tell us a little bit about that project? Very
Yeah, so that
interesting.
project, I mean, look, for myself regarding just, the important question of, Indigenous relations in Canada. For myself personally, growing up in Vancouver, it was the totem poles. I mean, as a as a kid, either there was one at the top of Burnaby Mountain, and then of course the stand at Stanley Park, which is actually now missing the Edith Neal pole. That pole is now back at the Museum of Anthropology because there's been some weather deterioration, and her descendants thought, well, it was actually originally a gift to MoMA, the museum, MOA, sorry, Museum of Anthropology out at UBC. And so the family has returned the pole to their care. So it's there. It's actually, I saw it last time I was in Vancouver. It's now horizontal, and you can see just up close some of the damage from just the rain and the wind over over the decades it's been there. But just as a kid, looking up and seeing these animals, I mean, if I could show you around I mean, I've even got, I don't know if you can see, I've got various sculptures and drums and carvings around my house. Just as a kid looking up and seeing these animals looking down at me, it just
Hmm.
transported me, and it still does. And then so learning more about their mythology was probably my first in into, indigenous culture. And then, of course, doing some, independent research as a young adult and realizing, yeah, this isn't right the way they've been treated. And just, just that realization that we have treated and welcomed immigrants in a far more compassionate way than we have treated the original inhabitants. And I wouldn't even say the original owners of the land because they don't think in those terms. I mean, basically, we belong to the land, and it's more the sort of colonial sentiment of, I own this patch of earth and I own this patch of water, and it's partly why there is just this terrible abuse of resources because there is this general sense of ownership that comes with the with that comes with the colonial background. So we took when we were co-artistic directors of summer classical programming in Banff for a number of years, we had the opportunity to take some Indigenous learning weekly Zooms, and that was some of that was through COVID. And we just met some wonderful leaders, elders, speakers, and that just sort of drew us into this world more deeply. And then we thought, well, hey, why don't we try to collaborate on something musical, because that's the world that we work in and live in. And I think what we wanted to do was not, get some grants in order and then contact some indigenous people and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. But what we did was we were able to make some connections. We had met some people, Renelta Arluk, and Marion Newman, and Sherry Miracle is now on the project, also singing and narrating. And we've also worked with Aaron Wells, Chacham Hai. We were able to um, bring this project and bring them in and say, how, tell us what to do, tell us where to go, what to, how, help us be respectful and creative together. And we've also brought in Alice Mackay, Caroline Hall. We've brought in a number of people that we have done creative projects with in the past. So we've got people that have done some research, some historical research, um, editing video of some elders speaking at the UN and things like that. And then we've curated the music. So there is a section that deals, basically it's about the oppression of peoples and the hope for the future, of these voices that have endured. And so of course in Canada, our original and first shame is the treatment of Indigenous peoples. So that is a thread that runs throughout this project. Um, we touch on, the problems of Jewish oppression, and racism with Mendelssohn, and going through some of that era of time. And then there are ties with some scores that were protected by a Jewish woman in Mendelssohn's time, and then some of these scores have passed on, and then ended up in Germany and then in Russia, and then were moved to Ukraine for safekeeping, and now they're under attack again. These sacred manuscripts and historical treasures, and so it ties in some ongoing issues and some and current issues, and just we just try to give a voice to that. And like I say, with the idea of looking at some of these oppressions that have happened around the world throughout history, but the idea of enduring spirit and enduring will, and that hopefully we will, continue and go towards, a future together. Um, I always think back to the reconciliation poll, the James Hart poll out at UBC, which is a phenomenal sculptural representation of the history, where where if you read a totem pole from bottom to top, at the bottom it's sort of very traditional Haida, bold black and red paint, and a mother bear with a couple of cubs. And then as you go up the pole, and the general shape of the pole, I mean maybe not, sort of coincidentally, kind of resembling the cross, quite literally. But that's of course not what they were thinking. But there's this in this reconciliation pole, there's this very gaudy, sort of kind of gold, shiny thing sticking out horizontally, and that, of course, is an Indian residential school.
Mm.
And then, as this complete disruptor of their societal history. And then above that, we get a lot of a lot of children, but the children have no feet because they were taken from their ground, literally, and taken from their culture, from their family, from their language, from their customs, taken away. And one of the things that I don't know if you know this, there's a symbol of a copper. It looks sort of like a copper shield, and it was sort of a symbol of wealth. And at potlatches, you would sort of give away things as a symbol of your wealth. And so a copper was shield was one of these things. And so instead of that, a copper shield was melted down into hundreds of nails. And survivors and relatives of survivors of residential schools hammered those nails in. So it was a sort of a community led project. And so the idea that these their feet were taken away from them, their grounding was taken away from them. And then Hart also he got a few colleagues in other indigenous areas to come and carve like a guest sort of figure as you go up the pole, because he knew that this atrocity didn't just affect his people, but many others. And so there's sort of like some guest carvings in this totem pole. And then finally, towards the top, there's an elder. You'll see the symbolism, the four directions, the four corners of the earth, and at the top, an indigenous canoe and colonial longboat, both pointing to the future, both pointing forward, and an eagle on top, helping to point the way. And so the idea of we have had this horrendous past. Let's try to figure out a way forward together in peace. And it's just a beautiful poem.
And yes, beautiful, beautifully described too. Thank you very much for that. I think it's fascinating as, what how music can be part of the reconciliation journey.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and sometimes, there's a lot of words involved and there's a lot of talking, and of course there's the um, truth and reconciliation recommendations,
Mhm.
actions, a call
Yeah.
to action. But music is, I think, really a special way, an interesting way,
Yeah.
another way
Mhm.
to
And for me,
and for
the
healing and for, well, as you
yeah,
say, looking forward.
absolutely. And an international language, you don't need to know the historical context of a piece to enjoy the vibrations, some of the melodies, some of the harmonies, some of the phrasing, some of the rubato. That those are universally communicated ideals, I think.
Right. And across the ages of people and everything. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for telling the story there
Pleasure.
of your
Pleasure.
journey. Um, Great. It's great to talk to you. I just had one fun fact I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about when I was recent to change tone a bit. When I was researching you guys, I have to admit I was listening a bit on Spotify. And I noticed that I don't know if you know this, there is one movement of the Gryphon Trio that has 2 million listens. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah, Roma told me. Yeah, apparently the Schubert E flat slow movement, right?
Correct.
That somehow made it onto somebody's list, and I'm pretty sure we've all made, 30 cents off that one. So
Okay.
that's great.
Yeah, it
I'm gonna
really
buy a
it
celebration popsicle or something.
2 million. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, Spotify. But 2 million listens is quite
2
something.
million. Wow. Wow. I heard it was high, but that's yeah, so I don't know how, of course the algorithms work. I have one friend who's actually, makes money on Spotify, which is wonderful. Katie George, fabulous jazz singer.
Okay.
Won, I think, two Junos in a row. But she's great, and she's very smart too. But she's actually made some money off Spotify, which is great. And I think it's in some ways it's easier when you've got 2, 3, 4 minute songs as opposed to like 8 minute movements. It's a little bit different trying to get those into a hit playlist. But somehow yeah, that Schubert has done well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
And it
nice.
does stand out. You've got, of course, the four movements, but number two is wow.
Yeah, that's funny. That's
Yeah.
funny.
So thanks so much for your time. And I'll just also add another
Yeah.
fun bit is that I don't even know if you know this, but your cousin, our friend Ian Parker, our artistic advisor here at
Yeah.
the K Meek, is going to be doing the in-person pre-concert chat with
Oh,
you
great.
on the
Oh, good.
day. So that'll be at 2:15 for those who would like to join the family affair that will be
Oh, good. I mean, we're just going to laugh like idiots. I mean, it's
with microphones, of
yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah.
So, so
Oh,
that'll
good.
be fun. No, we don't want to miss that. And we look forward again. The concert is November 16th at 3 p.m. Thanks so much, Jamie. Gryphon Trio. We're looking forward to welcoming you back home to the West Coast.
Thanks, Melissa. It's been a
Okay,
pleasure.
take care. Thank you.